What's up, guys? Andrew here today from Radio Controlled Chaos, and today we're going to be showing you on RC 101 how to replace your motor and ESC, and how to install them, and show you along the way what each part is. These are this RC 101 is basically for people who don't know a lot about RCing, and I'm going to teach you a little bit about RCing. So we're going to take our body off. Today's candidate for replacing is going to be our Vitera RC. This is a Vitera that I got from RCX Expo. This was, I think, in episode 2 or season 2 of Radio Controlled Chaos. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to start off by taking off some key components. As you may see, there is some different stuff in here. I have a trackless ESC with a with no motor, of course, because the motor that was in this I ended up trading with a buddy of mine, and the ESC went into my Losi truggy or desert truck, which is for sale. So if you guys want that, you can take a killer deal with that car if you want it. I'll give it to you. First things first is you're going to want to take off your dust cover. Some cars might have this, some cars might not. And depending on what kind of car you have, you might or might not have to take this off. For most on-road cars, you might have to. Some cars you don't. This is basically a cover that goes over the motor to keep the motor clean and keep debris out. This right here is your pinion gear. I don't know if you guys can see this, but let me move the camera in closer. You see here. Okay, so this is the pinion gear right here, if you guys can see this. That's basically what goes on your motor. That goes onto the motor, and then that connects to the spur gear that makes your drive happen. Now, if you want to change your gearing in your car, when guys say, oh, you gotta gear up or gear down, what that means is you're replacing this pinion gear and your spur gear, which is connected to your drive line. Now, your spur gear inside your drive line, which I'm going to open up and show you guys, can change in size, and the size changes off of the gears, off of teeth actually. And as many teeth as you have on your spur, and as little as you have on your pinion is going to be smaller than your spur, and that's going to give you torque. That's going to give you off the line acceleration. Now, if you were to change that, where your pinion gear is bigger and your spur gear is a little bit smaller, you're going to have more speed. And if you keep going down on your spur gear and keep going higher on your pinion, you're going to have a lot of speed. And vice versa, with the same thing you do, it's going to make it torqueier, make it take off the line faster. Now, the difference in between torque and speed, if you don't know what torque means, basically it means it'll get off the line real fast, but that's it. It'll stay like at a high speed, high rev, and very slow top speed. But if you were to change the gearing, it would get off the line slower, depending on the motor you put in, and you would get higher speeds at the end. These are what you see when guys go 100-mile-an-hour applications. They would put these crazy gearing ratio, and they would put this really torquey motor in the car, and the torquey motor would provide the amount of power it needed to propel the car off the line, and also carry out that gearing ratio so it can get a higher speed. But that's a little bit off topic. So what you're going to do is you're going to take off the rest of the cover here, and you can speed up the process by using a drill. So I'm going to grab my drill. Be careful, when you're taking out screws you can use a drill, but if you're putting in screws you shouldn't use a drill, and my drill ends up being dead, so that's lovely. So I guess we're doing it old-fashioned here. We're going to use the driver all the way through to take off all these screws, and I'll basically cut the screen right now so you guys can see what it looks like when we're done. Alright, so we've taken out those screws now, and now we can take out this plate that's holding our stuff in there. This is the upper brace. Some cars would have this, some cars don't. Here's your drive train. This is your drive line. and this is your spur gear. Now if I were to want to go more speed, I would change this to be a little bit smaller. If I want more torque, I would change it to be higher. But for what it is right now, I'm going to start off with, that I haven't changed the motor and I haven't seen what it's going to do. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to leave it the way it is right now and put the motor in there, drive the car around, see if it needs to be changed a little bit to my liking. So basically what I just pulled out of here is the motor plate. A lot of cars that are on road are going to have these. This was also in my Celica build, had a little motor plate. As you see, all these different holes are for different positions of the motor where you want your wires to come out of. But for what we're going to leave it is at the normal, what it was from the factory. Next you want to take is your ESC out, which is basically electronic speed controller. That's what ESC stands for. Your ESC is connected to your receiver, which is this little box right here that's connected to your radio. This basically gives the signal from the radio to the car and they communicate back and forth. So I'm pulling out the ESC. I had some double-sided tape on there to hold it on. Now the ESC has this little wire that comes out. It's called a sensor wire. This sensor wire, okay, well that may seem difficult to you guys right now. I just realized what I said. ESCs come with two sensor wires. There's a brushed version sensor wire, which is usually referred to as the wire that goes to the receiver. Now if you were using brushless setup, which would have 3 wires to the motor instead of 2 wires, would have a separate wire that goes from the ESC to the motor, and that's called a sensor wire, and that provides basically communication back and forth between the ESC and the motor, for having a lot more ease of acceleration. It's more feel. You can feel the car more with that. Now this is very tricky for some people. The sensor wire that you want to take out for the brushed ESC that connects to the receiver, okay, is going to be for different cars. It's going to be multiple different things. This car is actually labeled, I don't know if you guys can see that, it says throttle, steering, and bind. Bind means when you're binding the receiver and the radio together, the remote control together, you need to use that slot. You can also use that slot for power in different applications for like lights and stuff like that after you bind it. Your steering is for your servo, which is going to control your wheels steering back and forth, and your throttle is of course your ESC. So you're going to unplug that because we're going to replace that. Some ESC some receivers do not have this feature that says throttle and steering. A lot of the Horizon and Spectrum ones do. As simple as, let me give you an example, like the Traxxas receivers, they would always have channels. They call it channels. Channel 1, Channel 2, Channel 3, all the way as many channels as they want. Now, Channel 2 is where your ESC is. Channel 2 would always be for throttle, and Channel 1 would be for your steering. What that means is on your remote control, this is called a channel. When you're turning back and forth, that's one channel. Throttle, that's another channel. And if you had different features like locking back and forth differentials and stuff like that, like on the Summit, there would be more channels for that. So now that we have this disconnected, I'm going to go ahead and take out this top plate that I made to mount this ESC. Now some cars will have this, some cars won't, but in the way mine is made, the way I made mine, I have to take this plate off and possibly have to install it again depending on the way the motor that I put in here and the ESC sit. Some cars will have that. So now you have your ESC out, you can put this aside. If it isn't burned, you can still use it. If it is burned out and you're replacing it because of that, then you have no choice but to replace it. Now, what am I going to use as terms as replacement? I'm actually going to go ahead and use one of my typical, go-to ESCs and motor combination, which is the Castle Sidewinder SCT. This is about like 90 bucks. You get this for, it's a pretty basic system. They're pretty okay, but as soon as you start going into like racing and stuff, you will definitely notice that there is a really bad setup in it. But as far as going for just beginner bashing and stuff, they're really great. I love them. So we're gonna get started. I have my motor right here. This is called a brushed motor. A lot of people refer to the brushed motors as different things. Now, I'm gonna give you a little bit basic information about these motors. Censored motors will have a little slot in the back of the can for a wire to come out of, and they'll be going by turns. 10.5, 6.5, 7.5, they'll be named like that. Same thing with a brushed motor. A brushed motor is also indicated by turns, 15 turn, 18 turn, 35 turn, stuff like that. More turns you have on the motor, slower the motor is going to turn. More torque the motor is going to have, but slower the car is going to go. If you have less turns, faster your car will go, less torque you'll have. Now in this case, because this motor is a brushless, sensorless motor, that means it's gone by what they like to call as poles or kV. And kV basically means where's your rating, and the rating on this one is 3800 kV, and that's about mid-range, really torquey kV. It's a good setup for short course trucks, which it's designed for. Now this can is a 540 size, which means it's shorter than a 550 size. 550 size are a little bit fatter and they are a little bit longer. This is actually the same size as a 550 as thickness, but it's pretty short. So this is actually a size 540 can. Now for mounting your plate onto your ESC, you're gonna have to look for some things like where is it gonna mount to, and depending on the way it sits is how it's gonna affect the car from connecting up to the gears and stuff like that, how you're gonna mesh it. So right now I'm trying to figure out where is this gearing plate gonna sit in terms of me wanting to go ahead and adjust it. Okay, so from the looks of it, this kind of sits almost like so, like this. So that means the motor is going to sit just like that in there. So do I want my wires to be sticking up like this, like this, like this? It depends on how I want it. I'm going to stick them straight up because of my actual cover I have on the motor that's going to go on later that we took off. So I'm going to go ahead and mount up this motor. I'll show you guys what this looks like. You're going to need your driver. Okay. And you're going to try to push these screws in a little bit so I can see where it's going. Found one hole for this. Now I could tighten this down, and then the other hole should be right next to it, which it is. There we go. Make sure you're when you mount your motor, it's snug so it doesn't come out. Use some thread lock if you have to, but this one I really don't need any thread lock on it. I'm probably going to be taking it out after this video. So now this motor's set up in here. Now we need our pinion gear, and our pinion gear is right here, and our pinion gear is going to have a different size on it. So we're going to have to find the right size Allen, take it out, and now this is very important. On these motors, they have a groove right here. I don't know if you guys can see this groove. Let me focus the camera on this. There's a groove right there. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's actually cut into the actual shaft, and that groove is for you to put that set screw that's on the pinion right onto that spot, so that way it bites onto there. So you have to mount it like that. Put this motor aside, grab this guy, mount this one up like so. I'm putting a rough spot because I don't know where it's going to fall unless I put it into the car, which I'm going to do. So now here comes the meshing of the gears. Right now this is a very important part. You need to find out where is how far you have to be away from the shaft, or how where the pinion gear has to be. In this case, I might have to flip the pinion gear. Or not, there we go. So that's now installed. There's a little notch right here for you to put your driver into. That's a good touch. And your gearing is depending on how much play you have between your pinion gear and your spur. You want a little bit of play, not a lot. You can also use the paper technique to do that, and you know, you can hit up Traxxas or different places like that, and on their website they'll show you how you can use that, or you can also Google it and I'll show you how to do that. Now I'm going to cut scenes real quick and I'm going to show you guys when it's all installed. Okay, so oh, sorry about that. There's something in my throat. So we now have our motor installed, and now it's time for us to put our ESC into it. Our ESC, basically, I'm gonna have to look at how it sits here. We might need to use that plate again, but yeah, we're probably gonna have to use that plate. Yeah, we're gonna have to use that plate because it's too tight of a fit here. So a lot of aftermarket ESCs don't have any mounting tabs to mount up to the car, so you probably are gonna have to make these plates you know, eventually, to mount up your ESC if you're using an aftermarket setup like I am. Basically, all you want to use to make your plates is you can use things like I use, which is the old-fashioned aluminum yardstick that you get from Home Depot. Pretty nice setup, pretty nice. They're lightweight, easy to cut, easy to work with, and it gets the job done. And it mounts up pretty good, and plus on top of that, it works as a heat sink too, so you get like almost like a triple deal right there. I should have tugged this wire underneath that plate, but it's no biggie. I'll do it later on. And you're just going to use that double-sided tape to mount up your ESC, and then you're going to plug your wires in. Red wire, this is a lot of tricky things where people like to get confused. The red wire that goes to your battery terminal is also the same area straight in line where your red wire from your motor goes, and you plug that into that slot right there. Same thing with your black wire, and then your white wire just goes right in the center, and you're done. That's basically it. Now you're all wired up, you're ready to go. Pop your wires, tug it away. You want to tie strap it later on, or whatever you want to do with it. I'm just gonna jam it in there. No, it should be fine. And then you gotta solder on, of course, your Deans. So I gotta go ahead and solder those on later on. I go ahead and I cut my little switch here and I solder that together. That's a thing I like to do. You don't have to do that. You can use a switch. And this is your fan, basically. So you're gonna plug this into your bind plug. That's going to give you power to power up your fan, and then you're going to have your sensor wire here, and you're going to plug it up just like so. And now you're already all wired up. All you got to do is plug in your battery after you solder on your connector to your ESC. Plug up your battery and do the calibration settings that it says so in the owner's manual. So that's basically it. Now you have a brushless setup, and you can run LiPos, nickel metal hard drives, whatever you want to run on it now, and it's going to give you a lot more power, a lot more fun, and it's a pretty good bang for your buck for 90 bucks to get this in there. And it's pretty simple. You could probably do it in a beginner can probably put this in together watching this video, probably about 20 to 30 minutes. Plug it in. Professional can probably put it in like less than 10 minutes, like me. So if you're wanting to get more power out of your vehicle, or you're just sick and tired of that brush setup, Brushless is the way to go. You can find these kits all over the place. You go Hobby King, you can get them even cheaper. But for something like Castle, which is a name brand, for 90 bucks, you get an ESC and motor known to go together because they were made that way, with fan for the ESC and motor to keep it cool. It's a really good setup, and you should really think about if you want to go that route. But if you want to go into racing, which is a totally different setup, which is not for this combo, then you got to start thinking about other things. But if you're going to racing, then you wouldn't be watching this video now, would you? That's basically it today, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was some help to you guys to understand basically how to switch out your motors in ESCs, and gave you some information about it. If you guys have any comments or suggestions, please leave it down on the bottom. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe again. There will be more videos like this to come about some things to teach you about, like A-arms and things like that. And if you don't mind, please rate this video. And that's basically it today, guys. So hopefully you guys enjoy it, and hopefully this was helpful for you guys.